The night Mike Tyson walked out of prison, the world didn't just witness the return of a fighter, it witnessed the rebirth of something far more dangerous, something colder, something stripped down to pure instinct. For 3 long years, Tyson had been locked away, isolated from the roaring arenas, the flashing cameras, and the violence that had once defined his existence. Many expected a broken man to emerge, others expected rust, hesitation, decline. What they got instead was something no one was prepared for. He came back bigger, not just physically, though that alone was terrifying. His frame looked carved out of stone, his muscles dense and prison-hardened, but mentally, there was a quiet intensity about him, a kind of stillness that only exists in predators at the top of the food chain. The chaos that once surrounded him seemed to have condensed into something focused and lethal. His first opponent, Peter McNeeley, made the mistake that many before him had made. He talked loudly, boldly, recklessly. He branded himself as a storm, promising to take Tyson down, to make a statement, to shock the world. But there was something almost tragic about it, because anyone paying close attention could see what was coming. When the bell rang, there was no feeling out process, no cautious circling. Tyson moved forward with a terrifying directness, like a force of nature that had already decided the outcome. Seconds into the fight, McNeeley hit the canvas. It wasn't just the knockdown, it was the way it happened. The speed, the precision, the inevitability. McNeeley tried to recover, tried to maintain composure, but there was no hiding the reality. Tyson wasn't testing himself. He wasn't warming up. He was executing. Each movement carried intent. Each punch carried finality. It became painfully obvious that this wasn't a contest, it was survival. And even that didn't last long. The fight ended almost as quickly as it began, with McNeeley's corner stepping in to save him from further damage. Some questioned the stoppage. Tyson himself seemed almost disappointed, as if denied the full expression of what he had come back to do. That alone said everything about the version of Tyson the world was now dealing with. But if that fight was a warning, the next one was a statement. Frank Bruno wasn't just another opponent. He was familiar, a former sparring partner, a man who knew Tyson, at least in some sense. But familiarity can be dangerous, especially when it breeds confidence. Bruno believed this was his moment. He saw vulnerability where others saw danger. He spoke of victory with certainty, convinced that Tyson's time had passed. Tyson heard it all, and he said very little. Inside the ring, the physical differences were obvious. Bruno was bigger, heavier, stronger on paper. But boxing has never been fought on paper. It's fought in the space between fear and willpower, between hesitation and instinct. And Tyson owned that space completely. He moved with purpose, slipping punches, closing distance, dismantling Bruno piece by piece. There was no rush, no panic, just controlled aggression. Then, when the moment presented itself, Tyson unleashed a combination, sharp and violent, cut through Bruno's defenses. The ending came suddenly, almost brutally, as Bruno collapsed into the ropes. It was over. Just like that. Tyson didn't celebrate wildly. He didn't need to. The message had already been delivered, and it only got worse from there. When Bruce Seldon stepped into the ring, he carried the weight of being a champion, but also the burden of standing in Tyson's path. There was tension in the air, a sense that something explosive was about to happen. Tyson, as always, wasted no time. From the opening moments, the strategy was clear. Pressure, relentlessness, destruction. Seldon barely had time to establish himself before Tyson's punches began to land. A hook, a follow-up, then another. It wasn't just power, it was timing, positioning, and an almost eerie ability to sense weakness. Within moments, Seldon was down, and when he tried to rise, it only delayed the inevitable. The fight ended in the first round, 3 fights into his return, and Tyson had barely broken a sweat. Still, there were those who believed they could succeed where others had failed. Fighters who convinced themselves that they had the answer, the style, the mindset to overcome him. Buster Mathis Jr. was one of them. Unlike the others, Mathis tried to fight smart. He clinched, he moved, he attempted to disrupt Tyson's rhythm. For a moment, it seemed like a different kind of fight might unfold. But there's a limit to how long you can hold back something like Tyson. All it takes is one mistake, one opening. And Tyson found it. An uppercut, perfectly timed, devastatingly placed, cut through Mathis's defense like it wasn't there. The result was immediate. Final. Another opponent added to the growing list of men who had tried, and failed, to withstand the storm. But Tyson's journey wasn't without interruption. Controversy, suspensions, and time away from the ring threatened to slow his momentum. For many fighters, that kind of disruption is enough to end a career. Timing fades, sharpness dulls, confidence erodes. Not for Tyson. When he returned again, this time against Francois Botha, there was a different kind of tension. Botha was crafty, willing to bend the rules, willing to frustrate and provoke. And for a while, it worked. Tyson grew visibly irritated, chasing, missing, trying to impose his will against a moving target. It dragged on longer than people expected. Into the later rounds, questions began to surface. Had Tyson lost something? And then, in a single moment, he answered them. A right hand, clean and violent and unavoidable boda went down, and the fight was over. Just like that, the doubts disappeared. Tyson didn't need to dominate every second, he just needed one. That was the difference. Against Andrew Golota, the chaos returned in a different form. Golota was aggressive, unpredictable, even dirty. But Tyson met him head-on. The exchanges were brutal, fast, unforgiving. Tyson's punches snapped Golota's head back again and again, breaking through whatever resistance he offered. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it ended not with a knockout, but with Golota refusing to continue. The pressure had become too much. The damage to real. Sometimes, survival means knowing when to stop. That by the time Tyson faced Clifford Etienne, the pattern was undeniable. This version of Tyson didn't need rounds. He didn't need time. He needed moments. 50 seconds. That's all it took. A single right hand, thrown with precision and power, ended the fight almost instantly. Etienne fell, and the arena erupted not in surprise, but in recognition. They had seen this before. They knew what it meant. This wasn't just a comeback story. This was domination. The version of Mike Tyson that emerged from prison wasn't just about redemption or reclaiming titles. It was about something deeper, something more primal. It was about proving that even after being stripped of everything, he could still instill fear, still command attention, still end fights in the blink of an eye. He didn't just return to boxing. He reminded the world why they feared him in the first place. And maybe that's what made it so captivating. Not just the knockouts, not just the victories, but the presence, the aura, the sense that at any moment, everything could end with a single punch. That was the scariest version of Mike Tyson, not because he was unbeatable, but because he made it feel like resistance was pointless. And now I want to hear from you. Was this truly the most dangerous version of Mike Tyson? Or do you think his earlier years were even more terrifying? Which fight stood out to you the most? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more deep story-driven content like this.